Copy XRP has been moving money across borders faster and cheaper than almost any other blockchain network for years. Banks know it, payment processors know it, regulators know it. But there has always been one major gap in the XRP story that nobody in mainstream finance talks about, and that gap is programmability. While Ethereum was building an entire ecosystem of decentralized finance, lending protocols, yield mechanisms, and smart contract applications, the XRP ledger was doing what it was designed to do, which was settle payments quickly and reliably. That is genuinely valuable. But it also meant that the trillions of dollars sitting in XRP could not participate in the broader decentralized finance ecosystem. It could not be used as collateral. It could not earn yield natively. It could not interact with smart contracts. And for a network that is positioning itself as critical financial infrastructure for the digital economy, that limitation matters. A new layer of infrastructure has been built specifically to solve this problem. It is called Flare Network. And what it does to expand the capabilities of XRP is exactly the kind of quiet, foundational infrastructure story that most people in crypto are not paying enough attention to. To understand why Flare exists, you first need to understand the deliberate architectural choices that the XRP ledger was built around. The XRP ledger was designed by engineers who were solving a specific problem. How do you move value between two parties across different currencies, different countries, and different financial systems as quickly and cheaply as possible? The answer they built was a ledger optimized for speed, finality, and low cost. The XRP ledger can settle a transaction in 3 to 5 seconds. Its fees are fractions of a cent. It has been running continuously and reliably since 2012. Those are extraordinary technical achievements. But the trade-off that comes with a system optimized for payment efficiency is that it was not designed to run arbitrary computational logic. The XRP ledger does not natively support Turing-complete smart contracts, which means it cannot run the kind of programmable applications that power DeFi protocols on networks like Ethereum. You cannot build a lending market directly on the XRP ledger the same way you build one on Ethereum. You cannot create complex financial instruments with conditional logic that executes automatically based on real-world data inputs. The XRP ledger is exceptionally good at what it was designed to do, but the decentralized finance ecosystem that has grown up around programmable blockchains represents an entirely different category of financial infrastructure, and XRP was architecturally excluded from participating in it. Until Flare. Flare Network is an EVM-compatible blockchain, meaning it supports the same smart contract standard as Ethereum that was built with a specific mission, to bring smart contract programmability to assets on networks that do not natively support it, starting with XRP. The architecture of Flare is worth understanding because it explains why this is technically non-trivial. You cannot simply move XRP onto Ethereum and call it a day. Wrapping an asset across chains requires a mechanism that verifies what happened on the original chain and then mirrors that state on the destination chain in a trustless way. Most cross-chain bridges do this through a combination of validators or multi-sig arrangements that introduce counterparty risk. If the bridge validators collude or are compromised, the wrapped assets can be stolen or frozen. Flare's approach to this problem is different. The network uses a system called the Flare Data Connector, which is an oracle layer built into the core protocol that monitors activity on external blockchains, including the XRP ledger, and verifies that specific transactions actually occurred. When a user wants to bring XRP onto Flare, they send their XRP to a verified address on the XRP ledger with encoded instructions. The Flare Data Connector observes that transaction, confirms it on-chain, and the Flare protocol then mints the equivalent amount of FXRP on the Flare network. The FXRP is backed one-to-one by the XRP locked on the XRP ledger. The user can redeem their original XRP at any time by burning the FXRP on Flare. The assets are never held by a centralized custodian. The security model relies on the economic incentives of Flare's decentralized validator network rather than on trusting any single party. FXRP is the token you receive when you bring XRP onto the Flare network, and it is the key that unlocks the entire programmable finance ecosystem for XRP holders. Once your XRP exists on Flare as FXRP, it is a standard EVM-compatible token that can interact with any smart contract on the Flare network. That means it can be deposited into lending protocols as collateral. It can be paired with other assets in liquidity pools. It can be used to access yield-generating strategies. It can be programmed to execute conditional financial logic that responds to real-world data inputs. The Flare network also includes a native smart contract system that allows users to control their Flare wallets using XRP ledger addresses, which means a user who holds XRP natively can interact with Flare's smart contract ecosystem without needing to manage a separate wallet or learn a new interface. The system uses cryptographic proof to verify that the person authorizing the Flare side instruction is the same person who controls the XRP ledger address. For the end user, this significantly reduces the friction of accessing DeFi applications through Flare. You do not need to understand the technical architecture of the bridge. You interact with your XRP, and the system handles the translation. The early adoption data supports the idea that this simplified access matters. In the first week after Xamen Wallet integrated FXRP support, more than 18 million FXRP were minted. Over 5,000 XRP holders used FXRP for the first time, and the data showed that the overwhelming majority of those new users held significant XRP positions, indicating that this is not a niche product attracting a small technical audience, but rather something that is reaching meaningful segments of the broader XRP holder community. One of the most concrete applications enabled by FXRP on Flare is the partnership with Uphold, and it demonstrates how DeFi infrastructure can connect to real-world financial utility in practical ways. Uphold is a regulated financial platform that supports both traditional and digital assets. The integration with Flare enables XRP holders to deposit their crypto as collateral within Uphold and access lending functionality, including the ability to borrow against that collateral at fixed rates and use the proceeds through a Visa card for everyday spending, without selling the underlying XRP. This is a use case that has significant practical value for people who hold digital assets and want to access liquidity without triggering a taxable disposal event. The yield mechanisms being built through the Flare and Uphold integration also allow XRP holders to earn a return on their holdings in ways that were not previously available through the XRP ledger itself. Beyond the Uphold partnership, the broader DeFi infrastructure on Flare is growing. The network connects XRP to decentralized exchanges, institutional custody providers, and cloud-based financial infrastructure through a unified layer that is designed to solve what developers call the siloed liquidity problem. In traditional DeFi, liquidity that exists on one blockchain cannot easily interact with applications on another blockchain. Flare's architecture is designed to function as a connective layer that routes liquidity and functionality between otherwise isolated systems, similar to how internet infrastructure routes data between otherwise isolated networks. The analogy that developers use is that Flare is to XRP what the TCP/IP protocol layer is to the websites that run on top of it. The value is in the infrastructure, not in any specific application built on top of it. The real-world asset market on the XRP ledger is another dimension of this infrastructure story that has developed with remarkable speed. The total value of real-world assets tokenized and active on the XRP ledger grew from approximately $25 million at the end of a recent year to a figure that surpassed the equivalent market on Solana within 13 to 14 months. Real-world assets in this context means tokenized representations of traditional financial instruments, including bonds, treasuries, real estate, and other assets that exist in the physical economy, but that are being represented as digital tokens on blockchain networks for the purposes of settlement, transfer, and programmable finance. The XRP ledger has been extended to support escrow functionality for multi-purpose tokens and IOUs, not just native XRP, which significantly expands the range of financial instruments that can be settled through the network. Flare adds a critical layer to this real-world asset infrastructure by providing privacy and compliance capabilities. For institutional clients dealing with regulated financial instruments, the ability to execute transactions in a way that preserves necessary privacy for sensitive commercial information while still meeting regulatory reporting requirements is not optional. It is a prerequisite. Flare's computation layer supports programmable compliance logic that allows real-world assets issued on the XRP ledger to be used within Flare's DeFi ecosystem in a way that satisfies institutional compliance requirements. This combination of XRP ledger settlement efficiency, Flare smart contract programmability, and built-in compliance infrastructure creates an architecture that is specifically designed for the institutional real-world asset market, which is expected to be one of the largest and most consequential use cases for blockchain technology over the next decade. The total value locked in the Flare ecosystem has been reaching new records, and the growth trajectory of FXRP issuance provides a useful indicator of adoption momentum. When more XRP is brought onto Flare as FXRP, more Flare tokens are required as collateral to maintain the economic security of the system. That relationship between FXRP issuance and Flare collateral demand creates a direct connection between the growth of the XRP DeFi ecosystem and the utility of the Flare network's native infrastructure token. This is a different kind of economic model than most blockchain tokens, because the demand for Flare is driven not by speculation, but by the mechanical requirement of the collateral system that secures FXRP. As more institutional and retail users bring XRP into the Flare ecosystem to access DeFi functionality, the collateral demand for Flare increases proportionally. The developer ecosystem around Flare is also growing, with resources like the Flare Dev Hub channel and on-chain analytics dashboards through Dune providing builders with the data and tooling they need to develop applications on the network. The direction of development is toward increasingly sophisticated financial applications, including capital-efficient lending structures, cross-chain liquidity protocols, and programmable compliance tools for institutional asset managers. None of this is speculative. It is the logical extension of the infrastructure that has already been built. Step back and look at the full picture of what Flare represents in the context of the XRP ecosystem. The XRP ledger is exceptional payment infrastructure. It settles transactions faster and cheaper than almost any competing system. It has deep regulatory compliance and institutional relationships. It is being integrated into post-trade settlement infrastructure at the highest levels of the traditional financial system. But payment infrastructure alone is not the full picture of what digital finance requires. The financial system that is being built on blockchain technology needs programmability, composability, yield mechanisms, lending infrastructure, and the ability for assets to flow between different applications and protocols without losing their properties or security guarantees. Flare is the layer that provides those capabilities for XRP. It does so through a technically sound architecture that avoids the most significant security vulnerabilities of traditional cross-chain bridges. It does so with a compliance layer that addresses the requirements of institutional asset managers. And it does so with a growing ecosystem of applications and integrations that are demonstrating real-world utility. The infrastructure story of XRP is not just about payments anymore. It is about a broader financial ecosystem where payment efficiency and programmable finance work together, where real-world assets can be tokenized and settled on a fast and cheap ledger, and where the same assets can then participate in decentralized financial applications through a secure and compliant bridge layer. That is what Flare is building, and the progress it is making suggests that the infrastructure is further along than most observers in this space realize. This video is for educational purposes only and does not constitute financial advice. Nothing discussed here should be interpreted as a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold any financial asset. Always conduct your own research and consult a qualified financial professional before making any investment decisions.